Welcome to our conversation on presence. We are celebrating a life of presence. Dr. Nokwanda Edith Bam is a senior lecturer at the School of Nursing Science, Northwest University, Mafeking campus. Her expertise is in midwifery and HIV/AIDS. Edith shares with us about her calling to religious life and nursing, and she illustrates her life of presence through two striking examples. Edith is continuing her journey of presence as a nurse educator. Through her example, we see the importance of being aware of the moment and being with the other. Thank you, Edith, for being here. It's such a privilege, and welcome to our conversation.
Thank you very much, Professor. I'm also looking forward to our conversation. Yes.
Wonderful. Please tell us more about yourself.
More about myself. Okay. Basically, Prof, I was born and bred in Eastern Cape, just a small village in the rural parts of Eastern Cape, in a small village called Tomo. And well, I'm the second born of out of 7 children. And so I grew up there and also studied in a local school, and then progressed on to my high school, which was a religious context in Kofimbaba. It was a school for the sisters run by the religious nuns. So I went there for my high schooling from grade, this is what we call now grade 10 to 12. And then after my completion of my matric, I then joined the religious life. I felt inspired basically by one of the missionaries who was ministering to my church at the time. And because I never saw sisters before or nuns, people would say these words like sister or nun, interchangeable, but they're actually different. So then after I got inspired by this priest, I really felt I could also be a sister and live, like he did, living and living his life dedicated to the people. And I just was inspired by his being, just his being with the people. And for me, that spoke something, and I felt inspired to also be like him. But unfortunately, I could not be a priest. And so when I said that to him, and said, "Oh, okay, then you can go maybe to Mthatha." Mthatha is more of a, or say it's a big city in one of the Eastern Cape cities. So I then went to see the sisters after my matric, and I felt inspired also to join them because I felt that that's what was going on within me. And so during that formation as a sister, you go through a religious formation. So I went as well to train in Zimbabwe. I went outside the country to train religious studies to become a sister, a religious sister of the Roman Catholic order. So this is when we are known here in South Africa as the biggest order, basically, and we are the only missionary congregation that was founded on the African soil, because we founded in Marion Hill. That's where our cradle is, the cradle of the congregation, and then it spreads throughout the world. So we are in Germany, Austria, and many countries in Africa as well. So then after becoming a sister, I'm now over 25 years. I've just celebrated about 3 years ago my anniversary as a religious sister. So then after my training as a sister, I then also felt, because as part of that training, I was then exposed to hospital ministry, where then I fell in love with the care of the patients. That was just an exposure as part of, this is the ministry, and as part of the training to kind of see how I would fit myself into this congregation as a missionary sister, and as well ministering to the people. So I then felt inspired. Then I felt like I could be a nurse. I felt inspired that I could be a nurse to assist these patients. And at the place in the hospital where I was exposed to HIV patients. So at that time, HIV was very rife in the 90s, and maybe that's where I got that calling to be a nurse. So, and then I went to train in one of the local hospitals, also a mission hospital here in South Africa, where I then trained as a nurse. And also, as part of that training, of course, we're training and it get placed within the hospital or even other institutions to experience, and so as part of the placement, as part of the growth in terms of experiential learning. So, and then part of that training, I then also went to the University of KwaZulu-Natal, where I then trained, did my first degree and also my master's degree. And yeah, then qualified. And so with that training as well, I then got as well placed now, it's like I got placed in that hospital and I worked in that hospital like about 4 years. And then I also felt, I could maybe be a lecturer. And then I got placed like as a clinical tutor because I felt, here I am, I'm training, but it felt like I could impart that knowledge, my experience also to younger members. And therefore, that's why I think I loved the exposure with students. So from the clinical tutor, and then I became a lecturer as well. And yes, and then until I did my PhD, where my PhD again focused on HIV. So I think this is where my anger came from that those initial stages from my religious formation, and then to getting deeper into the HIV through my PhD. So that's about it.
Thank you so much for sharing that journey. It's a beautiful story of how you were formed as a little girl in your culture and um, in your schooling, and also until now, where you have a doctoral degree and where you are a lecturer and sharing your knowledge. What I so appreciate in what you said is that throughout your career, throughout your life, you felt a calling and you listened to that calling. You felt that you could contribute and that you responded to that calling. Could you tell us a bit more about that, please?
Oh, okay. So there are two callings now. The calling of becoming a sister, a religious sister, or the calling of becoming a nurse? Both?
Yes, I think both. It's just that feeling of being called and you felt and then you responded.
Oh, okay. Basically, when I grew up, I would say initially I wasn't going to church at all. But my mother is the person that was holding all things together in the family, going to church, and then I got baptized onto the Anglican church, and then my mother was always concerned that we couldn't go to church, although we were baptized. We were not practicing members. And so she felt also like inspired to join the the Catholic Church, which was more closer to where we were staying, to our family. So she then changed from the Anglican Church. She went to the Catholic Church, and then that gave us access to then also go to church. So we went to this Catholic church, and this is where I said I then got inspired by this missionary priest who was a German priest ministering in our parish. So his works, he was more onto the works of mercy, dedicated to really to being there with the people. So this is what attracted me. You know, he would come early to church and practice with us. And so for me, that spoke that he's just his being with us and also practicing with us before the church service. And so that this is, I think this is where then I felt I could become like this person. So his dedication, his just his I don't know, he reflected something more than just what the normal, something that is it's a bit difficult to say, but it's just his mannerism, his total, I think more the total dedication and just being there with the people wholeheartedly. You could say if he's ministering, is just the mind, the body, his energy is just with us. So for me, that spoke, and I think this is where I felt I could live a life like him, similar to his life. Yeah. And then becoming a nurse, as I said, it's part of this. You are watching, as I said, I was part of my exposure to training as a sister. This exposure to a hospital setting it was a rural setting, so to say, where there were lots of patients who were HIV infected at that stage in the 90s. Yeah. Lots, and that death. So that kind of experience motivated me to stand up and say, I would like to take care, to contribute towards nursing, and even if maybe they don't, maybe if these patients don't survive, but my being there with them would, maybe in their last hours, at least would be meaningful. Just that I'm there, because there were so many dying, and some dying with no one being around, no nurses being around. So this is where I felt I could be a nurse and just close that gap.
Wonderful. Yes, so what you are sharing is so beautiful in terms of presence, and that's what we are talking about today, is that priest's being, his whole way of being as a person, and dedicated in what he's doing, made such an impression on you that you decided to listen to that calling. And also your own practice in the hospital, your observation or your openness to what was going on there spoke to you, and you felt the calling to make a difference there and to be there for the patients, even if they will not get better, but that you make a difference in their lives, in their experience. To continue listening to Edith's message, please view the second video in our 3-part series, where she illustrates her life of presence through 2 striking examples. May you be blessed, and may you also be aware of your calling and how valuable it is to be with others for them.